Thank you for your practice. I was talking to a friend recently about something difficult that I'm going through, and she offered to connect me with someone that's also going through something similar. And I said, "Oh, thank you. It's so good to be reminded that I'm not special." And I think she was kind of taken aback by that. It probably came off sort of sarcastic or self-deprecating, but I meant it very sincerely. I think I started sort of adopting that phrase or idea a few years ago after reading this book, Nothing Special by Charlotte Joko Beck. Maybe some of you are familiar. She's a well-known Zen teacher. And she talks about how we're all kind of addicted to this idea of being special and having special experiences, and we're constantly chasing them. And so much of our thinking is made up of these tall tales and dramas about things that could happen, right? Horrors that could befall us, or maybe fantasies about who we're going to become, fantasies about being perfectly virtuous or getting perfect justice. And it's not that horrible things don't happen to ordinary people. They do all the time. And it's not that seeking justice and virtue is bad somehow. It's just that we want to be aware that while we're playing out these dramas in our minds, our real lives are happening. Right? These ordinary lives, right? This moment right here. And it's our real selves that have to live it, right? Not our ideal selves. So remembering that what we have right here and right now is the realest thing that we have. And if we're not careful and we're not aware, we'll miss it, right? We'll miss life, waiting for something more interesting or more exciting to happen, more ideal. And really, this life is mostly made up of very ordinary moments, right? Of just waiting in lines and untying our shoes and putting our shoes away and tying our shoes again and doing the dishes again and again and again. I was at a place in my life several years ago where I was using substances on a daily basis. I would finish my workday and then I wanted to have fun and I wanted to feel good. And I wanted every day to be sort of sparkly and exciting and really meaningful. And when I stopped, I really had to get used to everyday life feeling kind of mundane. Just a normal Tuesday, It probably wasn't going to be anything special and maybe not particularly fun or particularly interesting. My friends and I used to joke, why did we think that taking out the trash was supposed to be fun? You don't do it because it feels good. You just have to take out the trash. But there was a sort of disappointment that came with accepting the sort of ordinariness of most moments and most days. The sense of like, is this it? And I think at this point, I realize it is and it's not. On the one hand, when we give up this idea that there's something better over there, something more satisfying, when we sort of let that go, it makes room for contentment, right? For enoughness, and for a kind of coolness to life. And at the same time, in that contentment, something profound can happen. We become willing to sort of be with ourselves and each other and this life as it is, right? And in this ordinary way. And when we do that, there's a sense of aliveness, right? A wholeness that we've been looking for. Right, the life that we've been waiting for is right here already. Not always sparkly and exciting, but quite humble, actually. Just taking out the trash on a Tuesday. But so much of this practice to me is about a kind of faith that even those moments matter. Right? That there is a kind of sacredness to these ordinary moments, to ordinary people. And what it does, I think, is sort of offer a freedom, actually, from that sense of lack and not enoughness, and this constant seeking something else, and the sort of drama of all of that. But as we wean off our habits of dramatizing and constant thrill-seeking, we might feel bored. And so practice also for me is about learning how to be bored. Learning how to be with what's here without trying to improve upon every moment and treat the ordinary like it's a problem, right? Like something's wrong. So we've talked about Vedana in here before, which is a feeling tone that comes with every experience, right? This very basic, this experience is pleasant, right? This one is unpleasant. This one is neutral. And when we encounter experiences that have a neutral feeling tone, neutral Vedana, it's neither very pleasant nor very unpleasant, it just is. We have a habit sometimes of dismissing those experiences or ignoring them, seeking something more interesting. And that's sort of evolutionary. It's not wrong. But in this practice, we sort of bring in an attitude that every moment is worth our time, right? Our attention, our interest. It's a kind of humility in a way, right? Of saying that maybe I don't already know everything there is to know about taking out the trash. We invite ourselves to get a little more interested in knowing each moment of life a little more deeply, getting interested even in what boredom is like, right? What is that? Sometimes boredom can feel like a little push, right? Or a little pull, this kind of reaching or leaning forward, seeking out something else. And if you notice that, you can practice sort of sitting back, sitting down a little bit more, and working with it that way, being interested in what happens next when we do that. And boredom might also feel like a kind of lethargy, like a low energy. And there are all sorts of ways that we can invite in more energy into our sit, but I think if our habit is always to be improving ourselves in the moment and our experience, then we might want to practice just allowing ourselves to be tired, right? To have low energy. What is that like? Right? Can that be a part of life? Right? Just these moments where things aren't exciting and we're not fully awake, right? And when we practice allowing and accepting whatever experience arises, to me, we're practicing love, right? That's loving kindness. It's goodwill toward life, right? Yeah, this is a part of it too. Sleepiness, tiredness, low energy, lethargy, boredom, right? It's okay. So you practice and you see the practice is ordinary, right? Full of moments when you're tired and bored and restless, and then maybe calm and quiet, and then maybe sort of irritated and judgmental. So practice shows us what life is like, and it also shows us what we're like. It's tempting, I think, for a lot of people who are coming to meditation practice, maybe at the beginning, to hope that it helps us rise above the ordinary, right? That we can be sort of above messy humanness. But what actually happens, in my experience anyway, is that I sit and I find that I am subject to exactly the same things that I might judge other people for, right? A kind of pettiness and meanness, restlessness and irritability. Right? It's so ordinary. It's so human. And really, it can be a relief not to have to pretend, right? To not to have to try to be extraordinary. It really has been such a gift and a comfort to me to remember over and over again that I'm not special, and that I'm inescapably human, right? Inevitably ordinary. So to me, when I say I'm not special, I mean I'm not alone. Right? We give up the delusion of specialness and we open up to the truth of connectedness. So I'm not above that guy, overreacting and making this thing all about him, right? That's me too, right? When it's my drama, it's all about me. And so when I see pain in him, his pain is my pain is his pain. Right? We're connected, not alone. And Joko Beck says that in this way, there's just one pain. There's just one joy, and it's ours. We could also say then that, there's just the collective pain of the world, and there's just collective liberation. So it's not a private battle that we're sort of fighting here on these cushions. When restlessness and dissatisfaction and boredom arises in our hearts and minds, we're seeing just a fragment of this greater collective restlessness. Our shared dissatisfaction and boredom, our shared longing for wholeness. Right? So there's just this great dukkha and this that we've collectively carried with us over and across generations and generations. And when we really start to understand this, we can start to give up the burden of having to punish ourselves, right, for our shortcomings, which just really aren't that special to us, where they're not that unique to us, right? And we can give up the burden of having to improve ourselves, improve our lives, which sounds a little scary, or it can, right? To give up the self-improvement game, right? I think we think that if we let go of that, then we're sort of afraid we'll slide all the way down into the sort of worst kind of human being we fear we could become. And all I can really say about that is I think it's something we have to see for ourselves. In my own experience, that's not what happens in those moments when I let go and when I trust, when I learn what I can trust. It's not a bottomless pit of evil underneath. It's just ordinary, right? It's just this. And I don't find that I give up all of my efforts and my goals, and I don't become careless. It's just that the energy behind that stuff is not fueled by fear, right? or not enoughness or lack. It's fueled by something else, maybe a real interest in what that experience could be like. So to me, so much of this practice is about sort of learning to see that there's something sacred in every moment and in every person. And there are all of these stories in the Pali Canon that describe the moment that someone becomes awakened, enlightened. And so many of them happen in just such mundane moments, actually. So there's a story that I really like about one of the few female disciples of the Buddha that get talked about in the Pali Canon. Her name is Patachara, and this is a poem about her moment of awakening. When they plow their fields and sow seeds in the earth, when they care for their wives and children, young men find riches. But I've done everything right and followed the rules of my teacher. I'm not lazy or proud. Why haven't I found peace? I really love how this poem starts because it really is so human, right? She's just comparing herself to other people and going, but I was so good. Why don't I have peace? It's not fair. Right? So relatable. Bathing my feet, I watched the water spill down the slope. I concentrated my mind the way you train a good horse. Then I took a lamp and went into my cell, checked the bed, and sat down on it. I took a needle and pushed the wick down. When the lamp went out, my mind was freed. And so she just washed her feet. She just watched the water flow down the hill. She sat on her bed and she turned the light out. And her mind was freed. Nothing special, so ordinary. And so let's practice with this ordinary moment right here.